So I was thinking about Obor and Bryophyta and all the other giants, and it kind of got me thinking, we're missing a few giant bosses, don't you think? So, what if we added a fire giant boss, an ice giant boss, or even crazier, a Cyclops boss? Find out in today's episode of What If RuneScape. We could talk about Obor for a minute. It's a normal hill giant boss. You get a giant key from killing any hill giant at a rate of 1 in 128. It's halved if you're in the wilderness. But some of its mechanics are pushing you back several spaces and throwing a boulder at you. The only notable drops that it has is a free-to-play weapon called Obor's Club. You can consider this an easy boss or an intro to bossing in OSRS. Bryophyta, slightly harder, but also an intro to bossing, has two mechanics, which are summoning saplings that you have to kill before you're able to damage her again, and also a magical ranged attack. Also, beware, she will poison you. She drops Bryophyta's essence, which makes Bryophyta's staff, and that holds nature rune charges, which is actually very useful compared to Obor's Club. So let's start by talking about a Cyclops boss. Now, without changing up too many things, wouldn't it be cool if it was just normal hill giant keys, and we didn't have to add a place at all? We would just go to Obor's lair, and there would be an offshoot or a cave for where you could go in to fight the Cyclops boss, which I think would be the dark version of Obor, or the harder version of Obor, making his mechanics the same as Obor, just a bit more difficult to deal with by increasing the frequency or damage rate. And of course, what would a Cyclops boss drop except for, of course, its eye? So if we could take the eye and put a play on that to be able to maybe attach it to Bryophyta's staff or Obor's Club, so maybe it could help you to see through a certain percentage of your enemy's defense. I also think of the Cyclops boss as optional as well, and it would be really cool if we could just apply the eye to any of the weapons that come from any of the giant bosses, not just the first two. And if we go in a completely different direction and he's not the hard version of Obor, well, Troll Mountain might actually just be a really good place to put him. And at the very least, it would match the aesthetic changes that I'm trying to go for our Cyclops boss. Now we got the Ice Giant boss. Small upgrade after Bryophyta. Obviously, it should drop a snowy or frozen key, but most of all, I think it should probably be around the Ice Queen's lair. Kind of like a pit fiend or something that she sicks onto her enemies. It would also be cool if it had a nice ice chain collar to show that it is subjugated by the queen. Give it a little bit of lore as well. I've always kind of seen ice users as magic users. So how cool would it be if the ice boss only used range and magic? Or maybe even if it was stuck up on a pedestal that you had to bring down to your level to be able to fight it? Its ranged attack could just be as simple as throwing ice spikes or boulders at you, and when you get up close, it could possibly freeze you, which actually leads me into what it could drop. There are a lot of freezes and stalls in the game, but what if we were able to extend them by just a little bit, and you actually had to earn the right to get that extension? Perhaps it could drop an ice crown, and maybe that would increase the few ticks that you would have while you entangle or snare somebody. Or if we just want to leave it as cosmetic items, what if it just changed the animation for when you did freeze somebody? Or if we were gonna stick with the weapon theme, perhaps it could drop a wand, staff, or book cosmetic change, or its own wand, staff, or book of freezing. Next, let's think about the fire giant, and about the fact that it is the strongest of all of the giants, so let's make this the strongest of the bosses. And it is actually pretty surprising that this hasn't happened in Runescape, so let's do it now. And that is, of course, the fire sword. In every single MMORPG in the whole world, and even on the tabletop ones, there's a fire sword. So let's go ahead and make one. A giant warrior is what I see as a fire giant boss. A large flaming sword and possibly even some magics. Kinda similar to the corrupted gauntlet where it makes a square of flame around you. And of course, what would it drop? The fire sword. Of course, we need to think about where we would even put this though. And the Karamja volcano, believe it or not, has quite a few good spaces where we could just plop him down at and it'd be just like he was there the whole time. But of course, there is a lot going on in the Karamja volcano, so maybe if you guys could leave some good ideas down in the comments and let me know where you would put a fire giant boss. So now let's just talk about what I would do overall. I would revamp the 2 giant bosses that we currently have to make them in line with the 3 giant bosses that I hope to bring into the game. What if each giant that you killed could drop an armor piece? Obor drops boots, Bryophyta drops some pants, the ice boss drops a shirt, the fire boss drops a helmet, you end up getting a cape from the Cyclops boss, and as a full set bonus, you would end up doing extra damage to giant enemies. I wouldn't put this as any end game gear by any means, but it should be, at the very least, something to aspire for after Rune. And also, while I have it up on screen, this would be a really good training way to get ready for the Hill Giant Champion, or we could make it coincide with any of the cosmetics with the Hill Giant Champion, and it'd be a full, complete set. But as far as it go, guys, that's my ideas for some new giant bosses. If you guys can add anything to this, please do down in the comments. I'd love to hear the discussion. And I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe for more.